Hello, and welcome to One Spark Stories, the podcast where innovators, creators, and some unsuspecting risk takers share about navigating highs and lows, laughter and tears, and how sometimes all it takes is one spark of inspiration to find your way to happiness. This podcast is back to leave you inspired and to take action on your own purpose as we connect, create, and celebrate unique sparks around the globe, once again proving that it's a small world after all. Hello, hello, hello. I have been missing the opportunity to connect you with some of the incredible people that I have been really navigating this journey of life with. And what better time to bring back the conversations than celebrating my 40th birthday. The day has come, and I have put together a collection of thoughts around 40 lessons on my 40th birthday. So to kick things back off with the podcast, I'm just going to run through these little tidbits of knowledge that have become really words. I wouldn't even call them wisdom. They're just lessons that I myself have experienced. Now, the beauty of life is that our experiences are unique, and that's truly what makes the world go round, as they say. Just because my experience has created this lesson or this mindset around something, it doesn't mean that if you have a different one, it's not valid. The reality is that each and every one of us have a way that we approach each day. Our minds, our thinking, our experiences, they define who we are. Not right, wrong, indifferent. It's just who we are. And so the first one that I want to put out there is never feel like you have to justify your joy. Be happy. It could be a very terrible day for somebody. That doesn't mean you need to diminish. Can you be a sympathetic or empathetic or lend an ear to them? Absolutely. But that does not mean that you need to stop feeling good about what's happening in your space. The only thing you're going to do is then side rail your happiness and potentially make a longer term struggle to get back onto that path of joy. You work hard for it, embrace it. Number 2, also embrace that childlike curiosity and wonder. There is nothing I love more than hearing people ask good questions or hearing them have that spark of curiosity around something that maybe they haven't forgot or have otherwise forgotten, leaning into exploring something new. If you ever feel stuck or as though you don't know which way to go as an adult, you're like, I feel like I've done it all. I've met it all. Surround yourself with some kids. Find a group of, volunteer somewhere. Get that energy of curiosity, because unfortunately, we have become so trained and taught to believe so many certain things or to approach the day in a certain way. And that's just not the healthiest at times. We need to be more curious. Number 3, stand your ground. If there is something that you firmly believe in, it is okay to stand firm in it. Don't be a jerk. Just because it's your truth doesn't mean it's somebody else's. Can you provide evidence to validate or to justify why you feel this way? What experiences you've had that maybe will help others understand your perspective? Absolutely. There are some things that I do stand my ground on. One of them being present for my family. I will never sacrifice time at a job or at somebody else's beck and call at the expense of time with my family. So stand your ground on the things, the values. Do you even know your values? It's important to really define, what do I stand for? Just like any organization does. They're going to define their core values, what their standards are. What are the behaviors that you are exhibiting to show others that this is what you value? So stand your ground on those values. Number 4, think differently to guide innovation. This has become a wildly challenging task for adults. Anytime I am working with leaders or individuals that have been in a legacy career, they have so much knowledge around industry or institutional understanding, yet they really struggle with changing the way things are, trying something new. I think it's safe to say the world changed rapidly in 2020 and the years after. Yet so many people feel stuck because they fell back to their common practices. It's okay to be innovative, and it's okay if people around you are thinking differently. In fact, I hope you do have some of those people. And number 5, if you are that person, be unapologetically weird. If I could tell you the number of times that I've been told I'm a bit weird or quirky or you different, I would probably have this podcast lasting excessively long for days and days and days. And yet I don't mind. I've come to embrace that uniqueness in myself. And what's really interesting is the more you lean into that weirdness, be it that you are just a grown-up kid, or you enjoy certain games or certain sports, or you hyper focus on reading, or whatever thing that people define as weird, which to me is very weird that they would target your passion for weirdness. Don't worry about it. Everybody has their own thing. Just number 1, as I said, you don't have to justify your joy. You don't have to apologize for liking the things you do. Explain to people, or don't, what's so great about it. It's okay to embrace the things you love, no matter what you do, even if you feel like you are explaining yourself. Some people just don't want to change. They don't want to believe that anything is correct other than them. And that's okay. Let them see your weirdness shine. Number 6, ask questions. Always ask questions. Even if it's in a situation where you think, gosh, I shouldn't ask a question. I could never get over the fact that people get reprimanded for asking for clarification. And in fact, number 7 rolls right into this. Still need more clarity? Ask a few more questions. Be that person that demands understanding, because what happens is the moment you step away and don't ask, there are several other people that are also wondering every time, even if it's one of those quote unquote dumb questions. People have misunderstanding for a reason. Sometimes it's because the person sharing information lives in it. That is their world. For example, finance. Anybody I know in finance has this very savvy and smooth way of explaining things, and yet I still don't fully understand it. So I ask questions, and I've been so fortunate over the years to connect with people that really help you understand it, and they encourage the questions. So make sure you ask and ask a few more. One of the things that's bothered me recently is when even my own kids or students that I interact with, they are given a grade reflecting that they don't understand something, when prior to an assignment being due, they ask for clarity, and what they're told is, well, do your best, we'll see how it turns out. And then they get told that, well, your grade is going down because you don't understand. Well, folks, people are trying to understand. They ask questions. So let's set back our pride and answer them. Number 8, make a mistake. It's okay. Make a mistake, own it, learn from it, and move on. Sometimes in those assignments, it's simply because nobody asked a question, or we procrastinated too long to ask a question, or we think we're going to love something and we make a big change, and then we realize we messed up. It's okay. You can move on. You can learn from it. Those lessons in the mistakes are the most powerful ones. Speaking of power, number 9, be a force to be reckoned with. Let people know who you are. Number 10, laugh and smile when it feels right. It's okay. Laugh. Have joy. And number 11, don't force a smile when you're displeased. There are times that I have put that happy face on, and quite honestly, I just want to crawl in a hole. It's hard. I don't want to make it seem like, I always need to walk around and be mopey or let everybody else. I don't want to take the joy from them, but it's okay to sometimes just let people know that you aren't pleased, you aren't happy. You don't have to put on that fake smile. It's only going to mask the things that need to be said and the conversations that need to be had. It's uncomfortable, but you have to speak up. And number 12, use your voice to speak your truth. Your voice matters. Your truth is your truth. Somebody else's is theirs. We have to understand each other's journeys in order to understand how we got to that point. There are family that I disagree with. There are friends that I disagree with. And that's okay, because the way we were raised in life, the way we approach life today, the careers that we have, it presents a different type of understanding. And so for me, I have become very vocal about my feelings towards education and the student experience. That's based on what I've seen as a student, working in schools, working in industry, and the gaps that we have, and what I've seen consistently that could be done. It's uncomfortable. I have had some people mock me. I have had people in the profession quit talking to me. I have had leaders that have made my life living hell, quite honestly. But the reality is I stand firm in what I believe in. As I said, number 3, stand your ground. It's okay to use your voice to speak your truth. And I guarantee somebody is depending on you doing that. Number 13, use your imagination. I can't say this one enough. It really, really holds power. Not sure you have an imagination? Okay, get out there and try something different. Turn off the noise. Don't listen to music on a run. Don't listen to this podcast and then turn off the podcast. Just wander. A lot of times people have the most creative, imaginative solutions or ideas while they're in the shower. Now, if you listen to music, that's probably not happening, but it's when we turn off the noise of the world that we can really dial in. And imagination doesn't always mean it's this colorful, creative drawing or artsy. I feel like people picture imagination as like colorful bubbles and cartoon characters. That's not just what imagination is. It's about creating and innovating solutions or opportunities that have not yet been seen. So use that imagination and find ways to help people see it. Next up is going to be family, faith, and friendships absolutely can be your priority. There have been many jobs or moments where, I've not felt good about where I am in that period of time. Quite literally, I might be at an event or be in the office super late. And for what? Do I have a job to do? Yes. But the challenge of being someone that really likes to go almost, I doubt my own skill. Have you ever do that where you think, I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. So I've got to prove it. So you do more than the expectation. And the problem is you do that at the expense of those around you that value your time, that need your time, and quite frankly, that you need time with them. So for me, shifting to prioritize who I am around, who I am spending that time with, and being able to explain in situations, you know what, I appreciate that you would like me here at this time, or I understand that I walked out at the time the clock hit that exact hour, when I was in the classroom. It was the building culture in some spaces to stay until 5 or 6 when students would leave at 4. I had young kids, and that's just not it. And so I had to get comfortable with knowing that I would go home and I would sit and be present with my children, and we would have dinners together. And then when they would go to bed, that was when I would do that work. I didn't need to be in an office. You don't have to be visible. Unfortunately, for some people, visibility is when they believe you're working. But at the end of the job, or at the end of the day, if I am able to produce the work that is necessary and providing value, it is never going to be a doubt in my mind that family, faith, and friendship will be the priority above all. So never feel bad about that. And at the same time, number 15, help others who haven't found their voice. It's not easy for everybody to get to a point where they feel comfortable walking out at the end of the day, or they feel comfortable saying, I cannot be available for you on that day because it's my birthday, or it's I have a doctor's appointment. Help others who haven't yet found their voice. I have worked with somebody who gets paid significantly less than what I believe their value be, but they've essentially maxed out what that rate is for their position. And yet what's really hard is knowing that the minute that role posts, should she choose to leave or whenever she moves away, there's no way they could actually post the job at that rate. And so helping her understand her value and to speak up about not getting a raise in 4 years and yet having all the reasons to. So getting people comfortable with, understanding that they have things they can speak up on. It's no longer sit and be quiet, be the good girl, be the good boy. Yes, there's a way to be kind, but there's also a way to advocate for yourself. So with that, number 16, say no when it feels right, even if you can't explain why. There have been times where something is just off, and I have had to say no. I don't really have a good reason. It just doesn't feel good. And down the road, it makes sense why I didn't feel good about it. But there are also, leading to number 17, times where it feels very right. And so you want to say yes. It feels right and you can't explain why, but in your gut, in your heart, in your mind, everything about you is saying, this is it. Does it always end up great? No. Is there always a lesson or an opportunity? Absolutely. So it's okay to say no when it feels appropriate. And at the same time, it feels right to say yes, say yes. Because number 18, trust your gut. Your intuition is right. It drove me nuts for years. People would say, well, how do you know? How do you know that about that person? You can't just say, oh, I think they're good, or I think they're sus. There's just that feeling, and that feeling is based on past experiences, key words that trigger in our mind. There are different senses, and actually there is science around scent. There are certain scents that people let off, whether you're sick or if there's a good energy. There's different ways our body has receptors, and it can tell us things. It's as silly as it seems. There have been times playing Jeopardy or any board game that's trivia based. Never fails that I'm like, no, that can't be it. I don't know trivia. I'm not good at that. So let me take a guess at what I think it might be. And sure enough, it's that first gut feeling. That's the answer. Trust your gut. The more times you start to lean into that intuition and run with it, you'll eventually figure out why it was guiding you that way. And you'll be more comfortable going into the unknown because of that. Number 19, affirm the efforts and impact of others. It is very difficult to do a good job, to be present, to even just be a good human. Some days you're just done and don't want to people. And because of that, it's so important that we let people know what they're doing well, because we never know when they're having those days. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you can tell when a person needs words of encouragement, and sometimes you can't. I recently sent an email to somebody that I really have not gotten to spend much time with, but I wanted to acknowledge the effort I was seeing him make in his position. And so I just sent a quick little note like, hey, I happened to have a conversation about you and was letting somebody else know about this activity you were doing. It was a great job. I really appreciate the efforts you make to learn and grow. And what he sent back was a reminder exactly why we have to affirm it. He said, thank you. I really needed this today. I've been really questioning a lot lately. That hit me in so many ways. I've been in that. There's many days we all sit in that space where like, I just don't even know if I'm doing well. And so it was a reminder in myself to slow down while I'm seeking that affirmation, or while I need somebody to validate the thoughts and efforts that I make. We have to spend time affirming the efforts and impact of others. Number 20 is quite possibly one that I should scream from the mountaintops. Everything you need to know, you did learn in kindergarten, and then you lost it by 6th grade. There is a research study that was done by NASA years ago. Actually, it feels weird to say decades ago at this point, where they looked at creativity in kids, and the highest rate of creative genius was in preschoolers. What was happening was through early childhood, the teen years, and going into adulthood, that creativity dropped significantly. That passion, that curiosity, that purpose, because we became taught, we became trained, and we became so used to having a routine and system that we forgot how to just laugh and play and experience the world in a very real and raw way. We suddenly need guidelines and expectations. People are unsure of, how do I fold a fitted sheet? I don't know. You just tuck in corners. Some people are great, some are not. But at the end of the day, it's okay. It's okay if it's not perfect. We have to be okay making mistakes. In kindergarten, we make mistakes. We get taught to correct them, but we know that we are in a state of constant learning at that age. We need to embrace that more as adults. Go back to the mindset of that childlike wonder. I'm repeating myself with that number 2 I mentioned, but it's so true. We have to remember what it was like to be that kid, to really have a genuine interest in other people, to listen very carefully, to feel deeply about those around us. So try to scale back, not just thinking back in elementary or high school, but truly into the early childhood years. Now, kindergarten wasn't great for me. I was not well liked in my kindergarten class by the teacher. I think it was Sister Mary. I still have the notebook somewhere. I didn't like napping. I still don't like napping. And I would get notes home about, talking too much. Surprise, surprise. So it's not that for me, it was a glorious experience. However, it was a very freeing time. So go back to that curiosity, step away from all the things you have learned, and embrace that feeling of unlearning. And really, that leads to number 21. Be authentic to who you are, not who you think they want you to be. This goes back to being brought up in communities, being brought up in different experiences and around people that might mean well, but set expectations and standards that we then adapt to, and at cost of being ourselves. That authenticity is really what makes you uniquely you. Are you a terrible creative writer? That's okay. You don't have to be. What do you do really well? What is it that somebody once told you do a great job? For me, I am very self-conscious of art. I felt like it was silly to get grades in art because, I wasn't this top artist. I could learn the methods that people did, but I had my own way. The first time I ever truly started to embrace the idea that I have an artistic side was a photography class. I love taking pictures. It speaks very deeply to me. It captures moments, and I do it in a way that tells a story. They're never scripted. They're never posed. I loathe posed pictures. But that was a moment where I was able to lean into who I am and define myself in that creative lens, quite literally. And so if somebody tells you, well, you're not good at that, that's okay. You can be. I understand a lot of kids want to grow up and be in the NFL, or they want to be professional athletes. They want to be YouTube stars. Okay, that's pretty cool. So how are you going to do that? So we have to go back to that mindset of, well, I really would like to, and then stop yourself from saying, but I can't because, and instead say, well, how could I make that happen? If they want to be a YouTube star, encourage them to look into what it takes. Step 1, that might be enough to make people go, oh, you actually do have to do work. Oh, there are a lot of people involved in that. And that might lead them to say, well, I really like the editing. I really like the video. So be authentic to who you are, not who you think people want you to be, and then help others do that same. Number 22, integrity will allow you to sleep at night. I don't care what it is, but you do anything wrong and what happens? It stews in your mind. Shoot, I lay in bed worried if I leave my door unlocked. So trust me, if I feel like, I have really pulled the wool over somebody's eyes, it doesn't feel good. And it can be as much as knowing something is going on and not speaking about it. Being that bigger person, speaking up, using your voice, helping others use theirs will give you far more peace than just sitting quietly. Next up, 23. Oh, productive disruption can be done with courage and grace. First time I got called a disruptor, I was like, ew, rude. But then I realized, no, I've been doing this. And when people said that, they weren't being mean. They weren't snarling at it. They actually had a little smirk, kind of like, look at you go. The one that was the class clown in school, that Disney girl, she's quite the disruptor. It's actually piqued people's curiosity. And while I do like to question and challenge things, I try to do it in a way that allows me to hear what other people say. So if there's something that you're passionate about and you want to speak up about, just know you don't have to get loud and messy. You can do it by asking the hard questions, having the hard conversations, and giving people the grace of your attention, your patience. Sometimes all it takes is a person to listen, and the others that maybe have felt like they were dismissive or ignoring the need didn't truly have somebody that would sit and have a genuine conversation. Things would get emotional. I've been in conversations like that where, you get very passionate and feelings get hurt, and it's easy to jump off at that point. Remember, when you go into conversations with empathy and genuine concern for the well-being of whatever you're passionate about, or the support of or supporting someone else, it can be a very productive way to disrupt. And part of that is going to be based on your unique spark and you embracing it. Number 24, celebrate your unique spark. We all have it. It's okay. Be that special snowflake. We need you. Celebrate the heck out of it. If you do something well, tell people. It's okay to share. It doesn't make you a braggadocious person. We don't celebrate our wins enough. So when something goes well, if you get an award, if you get the promotion, if you quit the job and it feels good, celebrate it. People need to hear that raw story that we all go through and what gets us to that uniqueness. The more we lean into what makes each of us our individual selves, others will feel more comfortable leaning into it themselves. Number 25, don't bite your tongue. It only causes you pain. I've done this for far too many years. I actually genuinely remember the first time I told somebody no and was done biting my tongue. And it's almost shameful to admit it was less than 4 years ago. I was getting off the highway close to my home, and I was having a conversation with somebody that I, by all intents and purposes, was an equal to. And they had continuously treated me as though I was somebody that answered to them. And meanwhile, I was doing, not just saying this because I feel like, oh, I did all the work. No, literally was doing all the work. And this person was wanting the accolades. And they reached out and said, I need you to get me this information about this person, which, note to self, I had already sent them multiple times, and it was in multiple correspondences. And I had had enough. I was at a breaking point. My family needed me. I could not be present because I was constantly jumping for others. And so finally I had to say, I have given it to you. I am not able to continue to do this. I need you to step into it and look for this yourself. I have other responsibilities I need to be taken care of. I was terrified as the words came out, but sometimes it's when we get to that lowest of lows that we can't do it anymore, and we say what needs to be said. And let me tell you, it was a literal feeling of weight coming off the shoulder. I felt this heaviness go away because the world didn't end. Do you know what happened? That person said, oh, okay, I'll go look for it. Thank you. They even said thank you, right? It's wild how when we bite our tongue, we are allowing ourselves to stew in these narratives of the worst that could happen. And 9 times out of 10, that worst thing is actually really not even close to what will really happen. So stop biting your tongue. It's only causing you pain. Number 26, it is okay to be optimistic. And it is also okay to feel really sad. There are many times people have said, Katie, you're just always happy. And I've gotten better about saying, you know what, I'm happy because I'm here in this moment, but there's a lot going on right now. So I'm glad that you are seeing me in a moment of joy because, man, it's tough right now. Speak to it. Optimism doesn't mean you're naive. Optimism doesn't have to mean that you don't know there's hard days. It's very fair to say that maybe being a realist might be the more PC way, the politically correct way to say, I'm very hopeful that something's happened, but I also know this. I'm tired of dwelling in but this might happen. So yeah, I'm an optimist. I like to see the good and I like to find ways to make that good happen. And I am also allowed to say, but it's hard and days are sad. And it would be safe to say that right now I'm going through some really hard days, but it's all figure outable. And that's the one thing about starting to speak up and do the hard things. You realize that even through the hard days, there's a lesson. There's good. So stay with that optimism. If you are the person that's constantly being joked with, you're always happy, you're allowed to say, no, I'm not, but I'm glad that you're seeing that. Sometimes people need to hear that feelings are normal. It's true. With that, number 27, just because others can't see your vision does not mean it isn't valid. As a creative and as a visionary, someone with that imagination, yet grounded in very rational reasoning, it's challenging. I have really had to work at explaining the steps to get to that end. I am a big picture person. I see where the possibilities are. And it's taken me years to understand that not everybody thinks through that way. I know people. I've studied the human mind, the way we interact, nonverbals, all the things. Yet understanding that creativity, that inner voice, all those things that are happening in my mind does not mean others are thinking through the steps the same. So you can absolutely have a vision and it is valid. The work is going to be in how you communicate that. How can you help others see the possibilities and give them at least a working vision of steps to get there? Number 28, humor is a unifying language when it isn't used at the expense of others. So I live for humor. I love a good laugh. I need it in my life. I also believe that humor does not have to be personally attacking, doesn't have to attack a type of person, a community, anything. It doesn't have to be ugly. So please use more humor. You know, we've had Andrew on this show, Andrew Tarvin, to talk about the science of humor. That is a fascinating conversation because even he has said, listen, humor is very important. Put it into your workplace. But humor doesn't have to be mean. So make sure you find ways to build in those subtle. And if you don't think you're funny, I think that's okay. Trust me, humor isn't somebody that can tell knock-knock jokes. I make up jokes and my kids cringe in all the ways. That to me is hilarious. So my humor is just sick and twisted because I think that my lack of good joke telling or storytelling is quite funny. So I guess the only one laughing might be me, but that's okay. I'm happy, right? Number 29, using discipline to teach something without providing clarity is a waste of time for everyone. This falls back to whether you're in the classroom, you're in business, you're in athletics. You can tell somebody to run a lap, but are you going to teach them that skill? Are you going to actually dial in with them? You can have an organization where everybody is falling behind on something, but if as leaders you aren't asking why and doing something to help, then giving out discipline or, putting everybody on probation or giving out improvement plans, it is absolutely doing no good for anybody other than creating bigger tension, making that bubble of frustration ready to pop. Providing clarity is the key to getting movement. If you're teaching kids, it's the same thing. If a kid falls off a bike, you typically don't stand there and just say, well, that was dumb. I can't believe you did that. Well, what did they do? We usually help them get back up and say, all right, now you were leaning a bit. Try to balance yourself out. It's the same way as adults. Discipline without context is absolutely a waste of time. Number 30, kids are brilliantly curious. Adults have to stop standing in their way. I believe this through and through. Are there things that we need to learn? Yes. And I actually, my background in early childhood education, I think those foundational knowledge is very important. The reading, the writing, I hate to call it the basics, but it's pretty much the basics. From there, leaning into curiosity is what's going to drive that interest in learning. Experiential learning, getting kids out into the world. They do not need to just sit and get and consume. For so long, adults have said, well, you need to listen to me. Don't ask why. That might be one of those words that just, if I were to have a trigger word, that would be one. Maybe it's more than one word. But to say to somebody, don't ask why, oof, that speaks more about you than the person asking the question. Are there time and place? Maybe. But if somebody's asking why, I like to believe it's out of genuine curiosity, even if a kid seems like they're snapping back. Sometimes as adults, we have to own it. I actually don't have a good reason as to why I don't want to push you on the swing right now. So I'm just going to let you know I'm tired. I'm tired and I'm crabby. Say it. Kids need to know. It's not fair to many people if we snap at them or tell them they don't need to know, stop asking questions. That's a quick way to shut somebody down and remove that unique spark, the value they bring. I see this in a lot of organizations. They'll hire somebody. They will go through this whole process to comb through and find the ideal candidate for a role. As soon as they get in there, they're like, well, here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. Somebody asks, well, why do you do it that way? Oh, I don't know. We've just always done it. Or, don't ask. You'll figure it out later. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's foolish. Because you've now taken this rock star that you took all the time to get, and now you're pushing them away by dismissing their questions, dismissing that opportunity for them to learn and for you as an adult to also learn and grow with them. So we have to be very careful about who we're standing in the way of. Number 31, sort of mentioned this before, but I think it's important to say you're allowed to explain yourself. You also don't have to explain anything. It's kind of like saying yes or no without it. There are times when you might feel justified in saying, this is why this is happening. People will tell you, well, it doesn't even matter. If it matters enough to you and you feel like it needs to be said, say it. It's okay. On the flip side, there are some things that are not going to make a difference, whatever you say. And so you don't have to explain everything. Could there be consequences? Yes. And it's important to acknowledge that, if I'm told I need to be prepared to answer questions and I don't, there might be consequences. At the same time, you do have that choice. So you have to know, what is it in you? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to that moment? Next up, 32, advocate for yourself. Change your doctors, your banks, your coaches. You know what's right. And you know when something's not right. I've been going through this with my own medical stuff. And, I saw the same doctor for years. And then things weren't adding up. The referrals weren't making sense. And finally, I said, something's off. So I started to see somebody else. And honestly, that first day, I noticed a difference because they spent an hour going through my history. Whereas I had been getting people like, oh, you can get this injection. That didn't work. Let's give you this one. It costs this much, but it should help. Come to find out, none of it was going to help because of certain conditions I've got going on. It took somebody to sit and listen. And I knew that had to be out there. So I finally had to acknowledge that I have a choice and I am allowed to speak up. If I say, well, I have POTS syndrome, first thing people start to say is, oh, did that start happening recently? No, actually, it's happened since I was 13 years old. What that means is that I have low blood pressure. I have some random heart shifts, I guess you could call it, and I pass out. You could ask my friend. I did it in choir practice once, passed out the first week I went to work at Disney. I passed out at church. I passed out upstairs in my home. I passed out in the shower. It's a thing. It's a very real thing. Come to find out there's some other underlying things going on that are all interconnected, but I would never have known if I didn't start speaking up for myself. I took a paper into one of my doctors recently that had a 4-page medical history for myself, my immediate family, my extended family. They looked at me and said, this is the most comprehensive thing we've ever seen, and it is so helpful. What a shame, though, that it took me doing all this to get somebody to start to connect the dots. We think we have people that have our backs, and they truly do. And listen, I love my doctors. I am a science nut. I trust in the medical profession. There are people that will understand what you're going through, and there are people that might not, and that's okay. I understand reading and writing, and I can really help people understand how to bring their voice out. You ask me to help somebody through a math or science challenge, that ain't me. So just like people have different expertise, so do our doctors. So do our coaches. There are coaches that are really good with certain personality types, and there are some that I quite frankly find toxic. As a parent, as an athlete, I've had choices. You know when something is right, and you need to make the choice that's right for you. And then on the flip side, there will be choices that you make that you know are wrong. So make it right again. It's okay. Own it. Admit when something's not right. You can say, you know what? I thought the grass was greener, and it's not. And I appreciate the grace that you're giving me to come and have this conversation to tell you I made a mistake. Here's where things went wrong, and here's how I hope we can move forward. It's okay to do that. We're human. It's if we don't acknowledge those mistakes or the choices that are wrong, that's when it gets hard. Whether you're not admitting it to yourself or you're not having that conversation with somebody else that really you feel drawn to. It's okay to have that hard conversation. It'll make things better in the end. And number 34, this was a hard check to myself from my son that I love him so much for saying to me one day. He's a teenager, and we are the same personality. Listen, like there are 2 peas in a pod right here. And there are times that we will go in circles. And one day I was just worried. I'm like, what is going on? I feel like you are just lashing out at me. And he looked at me and said, Mom, it's not always about you. Whoa. Checkmate. It hurt in that moment, but gosh, is he so right? I say that to myself many times, and I've known that. I've known it. But by reframing whatever he was going through in that moment to make it seem like, oh, well, you're mad at me. That has nothing to do with me. I was not allowing him the grace to have that feeling, to listen. Sometimes, I'll say things, and these might sound smart, but listen, I have faults. I make mistakes. It's listening to that feedback from others and doing something about it. And number 35 goes kind of right with this. Not everyone even likes you. And in fact, some people will think you're weird. That's okay. I'll be with the weird one. Listen, I got a lot of great weirdos around me. And I have come to accept as a people pleaser that it's okay. I am not for everybody, just like everybody is not for me. It's okay if people don't like you, because there are some that will go much deeper. It's okay if you only have 2 really good friends. It's okay. I'd rather go deep personally. I'd rather have some very deep connections than have a ton of superficial. Now, have I looked around and been like, man, I got a solid group of people around me? Absolutely. And then there are some that I'm like, I have to stop fighting for it. Not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. Number 36, kind of randomly thrown in, but bringing it back. Your art is beautiful if it brings you joy. Your writing is wonderful if it brings you joy. Your creations are beautiful if they bring you joy. Your job is beautiful if it brings you joy. Whatever you're doing, it's up to you to find the joy in it. If you feel like people are critiquing it, okay, you can hear that feedback. It's important to receive it. But if by changing the way you're doing something, you're risking your happiness, you got to really think about that. If you're doing a crappy job at your job and they're telling you you're about to get fired because you literally just eat Flamin' Hot Cheetos and drink Mountain Dew and scroll on your phone all day, you might want to say, well, this brings me joy and it's beautiful. That's probably going to get you fired. So you understand that's not what I mean. What I mean, though, is that if you are fully invested in something and it feels right to you, lean into it. I have published things on Amazon. I have done a couple of books and activity books and workbooks, and I don't always get sales. In fact, there might be a month or two where I don't get any, and that's okay. Because you know what? That creative process is like therapy to me. It gives me an outlet and it brings me joy. So I don't need to be a bestseller on everything. That's okay. It brings joy. Number 37, take pictures. And even more so, ask people to take pictures of you. And maybe not always selfies. We as a family have become quite invested in our family selfies on adventures. And that's great. We love it. At the same time, I think it's important to say, hey, could you get my picture? Especially if you're someone like me that's always taking the pictures. I think about all the videos we have as a family growing up. My dad used that big old camera. He'd carry that sucker everywhere. We have so many incredible videos, and yet very rarely does he get to show up in them. So take a moment and ask somebody, take the camera. Could you go ahead and snap a few of me? Remember the moments. And if you're a person that does not like to be behind the camera, or you don't like to be in the picture, that's okay. Know what's good for you. But in the back of your mind, if you're like, man, I wish I could have a way of remembering this moment. For whatever reason you're blocking. For me, for years, it was, I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't want to be in a picture. But now I'm like, gosh, I want to remember that moment. I wish somebody would have taken a picture. I wish I would have asked for a picture. It's okay to ask people to take pictures of you. You don't have to share it with the world. Trust me, there's thousands of pictures on my phone right now that nobody will ever see. But in the moment, that moment felt so good to me to be able to capture it. Number 38, your smile brings comfort to others. Stop hiding it. Oh, I see some people and I'm like, you have the most beautiful, genuine smile when you're laughing. Please do it more. Don't let your own insecurity limit you, because I guarantee you, whatever you're thinking that people are judging you on, they're not even paying attention to it because they're judging their own internal viewed flaws. I hate my legs. I played soccer for years. I have muscular legs. I have bigger thighs, yet at the same time, there's power there. And that's what I want my kids to recognize is that, listen, these legs are strong. I've had to reframe it and make sure I'm not out there like, ugh, my booty's looking big today. One, I just don't even acknowledge it because I was tired of wearing jeans or pants in the heat of the summer. And my world became no worse off. People might say stuff, but I don't know. They're not saying it to me. I'm comfortable. And I'm remembering that this body I've got, it's mine. I have a choice. I could do something about it. I have a choice. I could stop hiding it. Your smile brings comfort to others. Please let them see it. And if you are ever in a situation where you're like, you know what? I feel like they're wanting a smile and I'm not feeling it. Remember, it's okay. Don't force it. Don't force it. And please don't just tell people, you should smile more. Not that I meant to make that a man voice, but hearing that said sometimes, guys, it really is cringy. Even if you mean it from the kindest of your heart, it just doesn't feel good. It feels kind of slimy. We could do a whole nother episode on the things that feel off-putting. And Yeah. So if it feels good to you, smile more. We'd love to see it. Number 39, life-changing decisions will come. Just make sure you stick with the ones that are life-giving. I've made changes. Some are great. Some are not. Some have given the quality of life. Oh man, some have been truly amazing in that aspect. Then there are ones that I have made what I thought was a life-changing decision and it wrecked my life. It really took that mental piece, the financial piece. There have been some things that happen. So I learn, I move forward, and I find ones that are going to be life-giving. You're okay if you're in a situation, you're like, something's off, I need to change. Make the change that's life-giving. And drum roll on my desk. Number 39, oh my gosh, all that build up. And I say the wrong number. Number 40. Look, I'm not even giving up 30s yet. Here we go. Number 40. One day, all the moments will make sense. The tears, the lessons, the heartache, the friends that disappeared, the bosses that made your life hell, the partners that didn't want to pay, the job offers pulled out from under you, those experiences that may have seemed out of the ordinary or unexpected and ended up being a beautiful, beautiful value into your life. They won't all make sense at once, but over time, there will be little moments where you go, you'll see the connections start to come together. Those moments start to help make those mountains of challenges slowly diminish down to molehills. Things get easier. The clarity is there. The confidence to change things grows. You just have to keep moving forward. Find the things that will be life-giving, accept the lessons where they come, and embrace the sparks along the way. I have been really wanting to get back at the mic, but I haven't allowed the time to make it happen. And so my promise to myself is to do a better job as I move forward into this next decade of leaning into that authentic creativity, the passion, the connections that I have. Golly, here I go getting all emotional. It's just, the 30s were a beautiful, beautiful, challenging few years. A lot of lessons, a lot of wonderful moments, amazing friendships, connections that truly helped open my eyes to a world I didn't see possible. People that gave me confidence in myself that I never would have had. People that gave me a chance, that took a risk on me. So now it's my turn to take that, all those lessons, all these friendships and connections, all the people that are saying, my gosh, Katie, you are doing the thing. We want more of it. Well, it's time I do more of it. It's time I take that chance on myself. So my birthday wish is for you to also embrace that spark. Please, please embrace it. Don't let the others tell you it's not worth it, because anything that you are that passionate about, anything that will be life-giving and provide so much joy and possibly even financial reward, it's worth it. You will find time. So I look forward to next time. Got a few amazing conversations coming up. So as always, be well, stay curious, and I will see you real soon. Later, Tater.